Right now, somewhere in America, a case loader built in the 1980s is still moving dirt. No GPS, no touchscreen, no emission system to throw codes at you. Just raw iron, a diesel engine that refuses to quit, and an operator who trusts it with his livelihood. While other brands from that era rusted into scrap, these machines kept showing up. Today we are counting down 10 case loaders from the 1980s that earned something money cannot buy: respect. Number 10. Case W14. Let us start this list with a machine that a lot of people overlook, but that is exactly why it deserves to be here. The Case W14 wheel loader was first introduced back in 1977, and it ran strong through the entire 1980s decade. This was a compact wheel loader, meaning it was not designed to compete with the big quarry machines. Instead, it was built for the guys who needed something nimble, something that could work in tighter spaces but still move real material. The W14 weighed in at around 18,000 pounds and sat on 15.5 by 25 tires. It was powered by a Case diesel engine producing approximately 80 horsepower, which was plenty for municipal work, small construction sites, and agricultural operations. The bucket capacity was roughly 1.5 cubic yards heaped, which meant it could load trucks at a steady pace without burning excessive fuel. What made the W14 special was its simplicity. The controls were mechanical and straightforward. The hydraulics were responsive but not complicated. If something broke, a halfway decent mechanic could fix it on the job site with basic tools. That kind of serviceability is rare today, and it is one of the reasons why you still see W14 loaders popping up at auctions and on farms across the Midwest. The W14 was the kind of loader that never made headlines, but it made paychecks. And in this industry, that is what counts. Number 9. Case 1835. B skid steer loader. Now let us talk about skid steers, because Case was absolutely dominant in this category during the 1980s. The 1835B was produced from 1982 to 1987, and it was one of the most popular mid-size skid steer loaders of that era. Case actually called their skid steers uniloaders, which was a trademark they held for decades. The 1835B was powered by a 3-cylinder diesel engine producing around 51 horsepower. It had a rated operating capacity of approximately 1,200 pounds at 50% of tipping load. The machine weighed close to 5,000 pounds and had infinitely variable hydrostatic drive, giving the operator smooth speed control in both forward and reverse. What operators loved about the 1835B was its compact footprint. It was narrow enough to fit through standard doorways and gates, which made it perfect for demolition interiors, barn cleanouts, and landscaping in residential areas. The chain-driven drivetrain was robust and could handle abuse that would have killed lesser machines. The 1835B also featured a universal quick attach system, which meant you could swap between buckets, pallet forks, augers, and other attachments without needing a toolbox. For a machine built in the early 1980s, that level of versatility was ahead of its time. This skid steer set the stage for the even more successful 1835C that followed it. Number 8. Case W18. Moving back to wheel loaders, the Case W18 was a mid-range machine that slotted right between the compact W14 and the larger W20 series. The W18 carried a standard operating weight of approximately 21,133 pounds, making it a solid choice for contractors who needed more muscle than a compact loader could provide, but did not want the expense and bulk of a full-size unit. The W18 was powered by a Case 6-cylinder diesel engine, producing around 114 horsepower. It had a bucket capacity of approximately 1.8 cubic yards heaped, which was ideal for stockpile work, truck loading, and general site cleanup. The machine featured a power shift transmission, and its articulated steering gave it a tight turning radius despite its size. One thing that set the W18 apart was its cab design. For the 1980s, Case was paying attention to operator comfort. The W18 had good visibility through large glass panels, and the controls were laid out in a way that reduced operator fatigue during long shifts. When you are running a loader for 10 or 12 hours a day, those details matter. The W18 was never the biggest or the flashiest loader Case made, but it hit a sweet spot that a lot of contractors needed. It was big enough to be productive, small enough to be transportable, and tough enough to last decades. Number 7. Case 580E. Backhoe Loader. The Case 580 series is legendary, and we need to talk about the 580E, which was produced from 1983 through 1987. The 580E was part of the famous Construction King line, and it represented a major engine change for the 580 platform. Case moved away from its own G207D engine family and adopted the Cummins 4390, which is a 3.9-liter four-cylinder direct-injection diesel engine. This was the same engine block that would go on to power Case backhoes for many years to come. The 580E produced approximately 65 horsepower in naturally aspirated form. It came with either a fully synchronized 4-speed manual shuttle transmission or an optional 4-speed power shuttle with a torque converter. The loader side had a bucket capacity of around 0.6 cubic meters, and the backhoe could dig to a depth of roughly 14 feet, depending on the configuration. The switch to the Cummins engine was a pivotal decision. The 4390 proved to be incredibly reliable, with good cold weather starting characteristics, strong low-end torque, and excellent fuel efficiency for its class. Mechanics loved it because parts were widely available and the engine was straightforward to service. The 580E may not get the same attention as the later K and L series, but it was the machine that laid the modern foundation for what became the most successful backhoe loader line in North America. Without the 580E, the legend never happens. Number 6. Case W20C Wheel Loader. The Case W20C is one of those machines that old-school operators talk about with genuine admiration. Manufactured from 1983 onward, the W20C was a workhorse-class wheel loader that weighed approximately 22,735 pounds and was powered by a Case 6590 diesel engine. The 6590 was a 6-cylinder power plant that delivered reliable torque across a wide operating range. The W20C had a bucket capacity of roughly 1.9 cubic meters, or about 2.5 cubic yards heaped, paired with a maximum discharge height of 2.64 meters. The hydraulic system pumped approximately 38.3 gallons per minute, giving operators responsive cycle times when loading trucks or moving stockpiles. The W20C featured a heavy-duty articulated frame and robust axles that could take a beating day after day. The turning radius was about 9.93 meters on the outside, which was respectable for a machine of its size. It was commonly found on road construction projects, aggregate operations, and municipal yards. What really earned the W20C its place on this list is longevity. These machines have proven almost impossibly durable. You can still find W20C loaders working today, 4 decades after they rolled off the assembly line. That speaks to the quality of the engineering, the accessibility of parts, and the rugged simplicity of the design. The W20C was built to work, and it never stopped. Number 5. Case 580 Super E Backhoe Loader. Now we are getting into the machines that really defined Case in the 1980s. The 580 Super E was manufactured starting in 1984, and it was the higher specification version of the 580E we talked about earlier. The Super designation was not just marketing, it meant real tangible upgrades. The 580 Super E was fitted with the same Cummins 4390 cylinder diesel engine, but rated at approximately 69 horsepower, with a maximum torque of 252 Nm at 1,200 RPM. It came standard with an open-center hydraulic system using positive displacement gear pumps, 23 gallons per minute for the loader and 30 gallons per minute for the backhoe. The hydraulic pressure was rated at 2,450 psi. The defining feature of the Super E was the extender-hoe option. This extendable dipper stick gave the backhoe significantly more reach and digging depth. With the extender hoe, the 580 Super E could dig to depths exceeding 18 feet, which put it in a class that smaller backhoes simply could not touch. The machine weighed approximately 5,216 kilograms and had a transport speed of about 35 kilometers per hour. Front tires were either 8.00 by 16 or 11L by 16, and the rears were 16.9 by 24 or 17.5L by 24. The wheelbase measured 82 inches. The 580 Super E was also commonly available in four-wheel drive configuration, which gave it superior traction on muddy or uneven terrain. For utility contractors digging water and sewer lines, the 580 Super E was the gold standard of its era. Number 4. Case 1835C Skid Steer Loader. The 1835C took everything that was good about the 1835B and refined it. Produced from 1987 through the mid-1990s, this machine became one of the most versatile compact loaders of the late 1980s. It was the kind of skid steer that rental yards loved because it was nearly indestructible. The 1835C was powered by a Continental diesel engine, producing 51 horsepower. The hydraulic system delivered 16 gallons per minute at 2,250 psi. It had a rated operating capacity of 1,200 pounds at 50% of tipping load, and the machine's operating weight was approximately 4,950 pounds. The 1835C featured a radial lift boom design, which gave it excellent digging performance at or below grade level. This made it particularly effective for grading, backfilling, and excavation tasks. The universal quick attach system was carried over from the 1835B, so operators had access to a huge range of attachments. One of the underrated features of the 1835C was its chain drive system. Using a single-stage 80 HT continuous roller chain, power was transmitted from the hydrostatic drive motors directly to each wheel. This system was simple, durable, and easy to maintain. External chain adjustment could be done without pulling the machine apart, which saved time and money. The 1835C was compact enough to work in confined spaces, yet powerful enough to be genuinely productive. It bridged the gap between the larger 1845 series and the truly compact loaders, and it did it with reliability that kept contractors coming back. Number 3. Case W36 Wheel Loader. Time to talk about the big iron. The Case W36 was the flagship wheel loader in the Case lineup during the 1980s, and it was an absolute beast. Manufactured from 1977 through 1989, the W36 was designed for quarry operations, large-scale earth moving, and heavy material handling. The W36 was powered by a Case-built 504 cubic inch 6-cylinder turbocharged diesel engine, producing 185 net horsepower at 2,200 RPM. This was a serious power plant that delivered the kind of torque needed to push a 3.0 cubic yard heaped bucket into a hard bank of aggregate or overburden. The bucket breakout force was an impressive 27,000 pounds. The machine had a 4-speed power shift transmission and could reach travel speeds of up to 20 miles per hour. The operating weight was approximately 30,000 pounds, with an overall length of 24 feet 7 inches and a width of 9 feet 6 inches over the tires. The dump clearance was 9 feet 11 inches, which was enough to clear the sideboards of most highway trucks. Case paid attention to serviceability on the W36. The radiator grill guard swung open to provide access to batteries and the fuel tank filler neck. The engine oil dipstick, oil filter, and rear axle grease fittings were all accessible from the left side of the machine, which meant mechanics did not have to crawl underneath for routine maintenance. All loader linkage pins were sealed for long life, and the recommended lubrication interval was 100 hours. The W36 also offered a well-equipped pod cab option with sound suppression, air pressurization, a 6-way adjustable air suspension seat, and options for air conditioning and heating. For the 1980s, this was a premium operator environment. The W36 was the machine you bought when you needed a loader that could keep trucks moving and hoppers full, shift after shift. It was big, it was powerful, and it earned every bit of respect on the quarry floor. Number 2. Case 580K Backhoe Loader. The Case 580K is one of the most legendary backhoe loaders ever built, period. It came to market in 1987, replacing the 580 Super E, and it ran through 1994. This machine redefined what a mid-size backhoe loader could be, and its influence is still felt in the industry today. The 580K was powered by the Cummins 4390, a 3.9-liter 4-cylinder direct-injection diesel engine, rated at approximately 65 horsepower in naturally aspirated form. Its turbocharged sibling, the 580 Super K, bumped that up to around 75 horsepower with the Cummins 4T390. The 580K featured a fully synchronized 4-speed forward and reverse shuttle transmission. One of the most significant innovations the 580K brought to the line was the wet disc multiplate brake architecture. This was the first time Case incorporated wet disc brakes into its small frame backhoe platform, and it was a game changer for durability and maintenance. Wet disc brakes run cooler, last longer, and are completely sealed from dirt and debris. Critical advantages for a machine that spends its life digging in mud and gravel. The 580K also introduced the standard Case coupler for the backhoe side, which allowed operators to swap backhoe buckets in a matter of seconds. Case was the only major manufacturer at the time that built its own proprietary backhoe coupler system and made it a standard feature. This gave the 580K a versatility advantage that competitors simply could not match without buying aftermarket attachments. The Cummins engine in the 580K earned a reputation for reliable cold weather starts, strong low-end torque, and decent fuel economy. Mechanics appreciated the straightforward layout and widely available parts. For contractors, municipalities, and utility companies, the 580K became the default choice for everything from digging foundations to setting utility poles. There is an important detail for anyone maintaining a 580K today. There was a production split at serial number JJG002000. Machines built before that number are classified as Phase 1, and machines built after are Phase 3. The brake master cylinder, hydraulic pump, filter kits, transmission discs, and several other major components differ between the two phases. If you are buying parts for a 580K, always check the serial number first. The 580K is not just a machine on this list. For many contractors, it is the machine that built their business. Number 1. Case 1845C Skid Steer Loader. And at number 1, it could not be anything else. The Case 1845C is arguably the most iconic skid steer loader ever made. First introduced in 1985, this machine became the benchmark by which all other skid steers were measured, and it stayed in production for over 2 decades. The 1845C was powered by a Case 394-cylinder direct injection, naturally aspirated, liquid-cooled diesel engine displacing 239 cubic inches, or 3.9 liters. The rated power output was 60 horsepower at 2,200 RPM. This was the same engine family used in the 580 backhoe series, which meant parts commonality and a proven track record of reliability. The hydraulic system used a gear pump delivering 16 gallons per minute at 2,300 psi. The rated operating capacity was 1,750 pounds, with a tipping load of 3,545 pounds. The boom lifting force was 3,450 pounds, and the bucket breakout force was a substantial 4,690 pounds. For a skid steer of its era, those were outstanding numbers. The 1845C featured a hydrostatic transmission, a radial lift boom, 80 HT continuous roller chain drive, and 12 by 16.5 standard tires. The operating weight was approximately 6,085 pounds. It had a travel speed of about 7.5 miles per hour, and the overall dimensions kept it compact enough to navigate tight job sites while still being large enough to handle serious workloads. What made the 1845C so dominant was the combination of power, reliability, and versatility. It could run buckets, pallet forks, augers, hydraulic breakers, sweepers, trenchers, and just about every other skid steer attachment on the market. The universal quick attach system meant switching between tools was fast and easy. The 390 diesel engine was practically bulletproof with proper maintenance. These engines regularly logged thousands of hours before needing major work. The chain drive system was simpler and more durable than the belt-driven system some competitors used, and hydraulic components were standard off-the-shelf items that any heavy equipment dealer could supply. Rental companies loved the 1845C because it was tough enough to survive inexperienced operators. Contractors loved it because it showed up every day and did not break down. Mechanics loved it because it was straightforward to service and parts were everywhere. That combination of qualities is incredibly rare in any piece of equipment, and it is why the 1845C stayed in production until well into the 2000s. If you go to any construction site in America that has been running for 30 years or more, chances are good that a Case 1845C has been on that site at some point. It is the skid steer that helped build modern America, one bucket load at a time. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss our next deep dive into the machines that built the world. Until next time, keep those engines running